if you've ever worked step work before, when we get to step 4, I feel like this is one of the most challenging things in our 12-step society if you're a part of 12 steps. The work that we're doing through this process, if you're working with me, it's not 100% just 12-step work. There is some cognitive psychology, neurodivergent learning, and just neuroplasticity concepts that come into this, journaling, mindfulness. But the progression is similar, and it's also similar to a lot of religious practices. So in trying to keep all of this in mind, one of the biggest concepts, whether you're going to confession and talking with a priest or a pastor, or talking to a friend just about something that has been challenging in your life in the past, or just journaling about things that are just traumatic, what we often don't acknowledge is that our minds are survival mechanisms. Our brains are processors. And it's going to lie to us. It's going to lie to other people if we don't protect ourselves and go into a state where we are willing to be completely honest. And in that setting, we also need to identify that and acknowledge that we have an amygdala that is programmed to keep us in survival. So if you're going to talk about some of the hardest things that you've experienced in your life, it's going to try to have you not do that if you're doing it right. If you're talking about things that really hurt you, it is going to try to get you to either not remember it or to manipulate the memory, especially if it's something that is traumatic, so that you don't experience it again. The problem is if we don't address this, then we're not going to be able to heal. So, my friends, as we do 4 is self-reflection, 5 is reflection with another human. If you want to work with me as a coach, this is one of my favorite things. I keep saying that, but one of my favorite things to do. I've done so much in my life that judgment is just not something that is my go-to. I've also worked with a lot of clients and students. I think I've worked with murderers. I've worked with pedophiles. I've worked with people who have done just a lot of things. I've done a lot of things that I don't need to say here on a video, but I love humanity, and I think that we all make incredible mistakes in our past, and judgment is just not something that I can't imagine are going to experience with me. On that note, you do not have to work with me, a priest, your own sponsor, your own advocate, mentor, guide, coach, anyone. I just highly suggest that you find someone to work with when you're going through this, because you will not be able to see your own patterns. We cannot see, like Michael Jordan, he had a coach. Every significant, whether it's sports, speakers, everyone who is exceptional either has a coach or a mentor or someone that they turn to, because as humans, we can't see our own faults and our own mistakes or faulty thinking. On that note, doing this step, you're fact-finding, you're looking back in the past, considering that lovely, beautiful, innocent, spiritual being that got to come on this planet. I just had a beautiful thought thinking of my boys when they were just first born, and the way that they looked at the world with just curiosity and wonder. And then the second anything went wrong, whether it was their little tummies or a startling noise or anything, they cried. They needed help. They needed cuddling and comfort and protection, and that just, as far as humans go, we don't get it in perfection. It's impossible to get all of our needs met perfectly, especially when we don't have a way to communicate. And that's what we do with words now. But even now, that's why we have poetry and music and everything. We can never communicate 100% of what's happening internally on a spiritual level. So we're not going to get all of our needs met. So during this step, I suggest if you go to other 12-step programs, they want you to go through the entire litany of your entire life. Would never recommend that. 4 to 5 people, if you go through your entire life, if you've done that and if that works for you, that's fantastic. That never worked for me, and I spent years in agony until I was able to work with a coach and a mentor that took me through it this way. If I find 4 to 5 people chronologically that I can go through and just really dial down and think what happened, like with my parents, and I'll give you an example in here in just a moment, but it makes so much sense. I found patterns, and I found patterns of, I call them adaptations and maladaptations that I got from my experience working with a lot of therapists and other resources. But I adapt, which means I do positive things that help me and still help me. And then I have maladaptations. Those are things that I did to survive, that sometimes it was the only way that I was able to survive. For example, I know I have a lot of students that disassociate. They shut down their emotions and thoughts. I have memories that are complete blank spaces. My brain just turned off the ability to create the memory, and it did it out of survival. We do things that are not good for us that we don't want to do anymore. And I am just taking note of what happened. So if you work through other 12 steps, they want you to dial in about how your ego comes into play, or selfishness, self-centeredness, any of that. We don't do that. I do not live in shame and guilt. If you want to look at my blog post, Connor changed my life when he was talking about the Garden of Eden and paradise. And what took us out of paradise is the second we had the knowledge of good and evil and we started to judge ourselves and others. So at this point, we're just thinking about that pure spirit that came on this planet. What happened as far as the patterns of this world, what happened to us or around us, or how were we interacting with other people, what was confusing, what was just hurtful, painful, anything. And then like who was a part of that, and then and it could be places or ideas. Like I did this one time through just with the institution of marriage, or just with the concept of love, and I'm going through it right now with my coach and sponsor on abandonment. So if you think about like the who, what, where, when, how, and then facts of what happened. So for example, I've got in chronological order, earliest memories, my mom and dad moved us around a lot. So I felt like every time I made friends, we would move again. And I felt fear. I didn't feel safe or protected. I don't know why, but I do remember feeling unsafe, that we were just going to up and move at any given time. So anyway, my goal is to be heard in this. What happened to change my innocent spirit was that I did feel confusion. And that's my step 4. And I picked 4 people. I picked myself, my mom, and my 2 boys, and just walked through like, what in the world? Actually, I didn't. I picked my mom and my dad and my 2 boys and myself, and just walked through a lifetime of what happened, and with the idea of just finding out facts. And then 5 was I made a point to meet with someone and just talk through it with the goal of feeling heard, and also finding patterns, like what things happen in my life, and what could I start noticing, like ways that I maybe adapted as a positive, that I like. Setting boundaries is one. Working hard. I have a really hard positive work ethic. That was one. And then maladaptations. I hold people at arm's length, and I isolate out of fear, and just start noticing things that I did and do because of what's been happening in my life. So that's step 4A and 5A. I look forward to hearing back from you if you consider working with me, and if not, I'm excited for you connecting with your person, and I will see you in step 4B and 5B.